What is up, YouTube fam? Robbie C here, and today we're going to talk about, well, it's supposed to be a lot cooler. One major part of the disc golf throw that you may not be doing that's inhibiting your distance. Like this. Huh. Thank you. Well, not a good ace run, but we're parked for birdie. Before we dive in, we're going to ask the most important question of the day. How you doing today, Joseph? You having a good one?
So catch me if I fall.
I'll never forget when Jesse over at Trash Panda used the phrase in a creator panel we were at Disc East at this point. Back then it was Northeast Disc Golf Expo. And he used the phrase, I have to be a content consumer before I really feel like I can be a great content creator. And so I've always tried to make sure that I'm consuming a lot of content out in the disc golf space. Hilarious that I'm saying this as I unclip my towel tail, because one of the places that I consume a good amount of content that you have to be very thick-skinned in order to operate inside of disc golf content creation while still checking here is Disc Golf Reddit. Now, I don't think the disc golf Reddit is that bad at times, but I certainly feel like it allows me to have a pulse on the extreme side of one part of the sport, because lots of people, I'm sure way more than are willing to admit, actually lurk on disc golf Reddit, but they don't actually post. For instance, I have never posted inside of disc golf Reddit, and I have been consuming it for years. So like reviews of restaurants, you usually have to have an extremely positive or extremely negative experience in order to say something. But I like to look there to see ideas for a topic that we can talk about in the video, and also to see like, oh, what are people asking for help? We're still hunting Precious Child Ace, and one of the courses that I think we have the best chance of doing it at is still closed. So we're gonna try to see if we can't, while we're filming this today, grab ourselves an ace. Parked once again. I like that height. Also, hilariously, I'm running it alongside my Ringer Top Zone GT, and we're gonna see if I keep doing these side by side, does one get an ace before the other? Maybe we'll throw 3 shots, because I have 3 discs that I really want to get an ace with on each hole, and we'll go my A5. That's way too wide. Yeah, maybe that's what we'll do for the format of this video as we talk about it, because I actually think that while we've drawn you in with a distance idea, coming to a short course like this may be one of the best places to practice this method. So inside of Disc Golf Reddit, someone asked the question, it was like throwaway 5657 or something like that, asked, when is the right time to release the disc? Essentially trying to figure out, how am I supposed to gain accuracy during the disc golf throw, because I am trying to release the disc at the right moment of the disc golf throw. And I'm gonna be honest, guys, internet people, we could have been a lot more kind in our response, because as I would guess, it is a misunderstanding of the disc golf throw to approach it that way. But people sort of jumped down this guy's throat and trying to explain to him how he was just wrong for thinking you release at the disc. I don't think people are wrong about that belief, because you don't actually release the disc. But like I said, I think we could have approached it a little more kind, which is what we're trying to do here in today's video. Now, the disc I care about acing with the most is Precious Child, which is why we're gonna throw it first off the tee every single time, so that if it goes in, people can't hate on me for like, oh, you threw multiple shots with this disc. The other ones, it's fine, it's whatever. I'm a believer that an ace is a first throw from the tee. I'm a believer that an ace is simply a disc thrown from the tee into the basket. If you want to sit there and throw multiple times, that's fine. Still takes skill, even with that desire to get the disc all the way there. That's got a chance. Is today the day? So let's address what Throwaway was saying. When it comes to throwing the disc, I think a lot of people, when they're throwing, especially when you're first early on, is that as you come through, there's gonna be a moment where you wanna let go of the disc because you're trying to aim it or throw it down that certain line. We come out and around and we're trying to release it and throw it. But you'll find that folks, when trying to do this, aren't actually releasing it. They're letting the disc rip out of their hands. You'll hear snap or pop where the disc is coming out, and they're actually keeping their hand closed and the disc is coming and they can't hold on to it, and it's literally ripping out of their hands. We'll try one more time with this putter. Okay, a little deep. Now, why do we open our hand when we throw a disc? I honestly think it comes from two major factors. The first is most people's interactions with a Frisbee come from actual Frisbees, or those big lid type discs that you're throwing at the beach, or you're throwing on the quad at college, or whatever it may be. When you throw those discs, they're traditionally deeper, and so you're having a moment where you sort of open your hand and give them that like pop. And that pop, like we said, on a deeper disc, keeps you from sort of grip locking it and sending it, for right-handed players, a million miles to the right, but it allows that consistency. And the second is accuracy, exactly what we think it is, where I'm trying to aim in a certain direction, and so I want to help guide the disc on that line. What we think is that it creates consistency and accuracy by letting go at a certain point. But what you'll find is that the faster your arm speed develops, and the more oomph you're able to put into the disc, really the better you become. Timing that spot actually not only makes it less consistent, but it also makes it so that you've got less power and spin on the disc. Okay, we've got a little bit of tailwind. This straight shot's a little tougher because the trees are growing down. It's a low ceiling there. I think that like turnover is not going to exist. So we have to go like a low ceiling slide turnover to try to get this one. Let's see what we can do. Nope, it's a tailwind, Robbie. What did we just say? So throwing it nose up is not going to help that stability issue, is it, my man? All right, here we go. Zinger. If that misses that branch. It didn't miss that branch, and it's short. Let's see what the A5 can do. That's better. It's long. It's really long, but that's fine. This is a tough one. This is one that ace runs we knew, like, gonna be bad. Now, if you're like me, when you hear the idea of the disc ripping out of your hand, you can sort of sit there, and if you have a disc nearby you while you're watching this video even, you can have the trepidation that I had of, well, there's just no way that's gonna happen. Like, if I hold on to this disc and try to let it rip out, I'm going to hang on to it. Like, it's just not gonna come out. Like, you can sit there and have the disc and you're just like, you have that disc and you're holding it right now, and it just doesn't seem like it's gonna make sense. Until you get out there and you actually try it and maybe feel that disc rip out for the first time. This inherent fear of grip locking is completely real. I'm just gonna call it what it is. It makes 100% sense that you, especially if you've been timing it, trying to release the disc for accuracy, thinking about the fact that it's going to rip out at some point that doesn't make sense, can feel overwhelming. But 100%, like I just mentioned on the previous hole, you kind of just have to get out there and try it one day. But I want to tell you a couple reasons that you may find that you lose accuracy or consistency, because like I said, I think that when you practice this skill, you actually become more consistent with the disc. Let's talk about some reasons why that consistency may not be occurring. There it is, grip lock, no shot. What a roller coaster. I was like, if I grip lock this and then it kicks into a tree from all the way over there, oh, I'm gonna be a sad boy. That's better, but that's gonna fade. Okay. The first issue is an idea of wanting to see the result. I use this analogy in my lessons quite often, but when we think about our arm, we have to go to Tom and Jerry or classic cartoons where a dog is chained up to a doghouse outside. This is not an analogy normal to me. This comes from my coach, Mike Strauss, and Mike uses this analogy quite often of the doghouse and the chain for this doghouse. Two wild results here. So when you're watching these old cartoons, usually what's going to happen is that this dog is chained to a doghouse outside. Cat, something runs by and the dog takes off after it. Well, what happens when the chain reaches its full length and it's still attached to the dog, right? The dog's going to run and it goes boop, and its legs kick up, its whole body moves forward because the chain becomes taut, becomes tight right there. When we are thinking about the disc golf throw, often what we have to think about is that our body is the doghouse and this is the dog, the chain being the arm. However, when we are throwing a disc, the more that we move the head forward, we are literally picking the doghouse up and moving it, which means that when this chain wants to become tight and hit, when the hit occurs, that is when the dog's body kicks up, kicks forward. That tightening of it is how the disc is going to rip out of our hands right there. But like I said, when we pick our head up and we start moving it closer and closer to the target, the tightness of the chain doesn't happen here because my arm's incredibly loose. It happens over here, which creates that grip lock that we're talking about. That's why for lots of you, some of the most powerful throws you've ever had is when the disc actually did rip out of your hands in a grip lock, because your head had turned so far towards the target that it ripped out just in the wrong direction. Now, you're not a bad person for this, and you're not necessarily even a bad player for doing this. It is perfectly natural to step up and see a gap that is presented in front of you and to think to yourself, I want to hit that gap. I want to be accurate to that gap. And the anticipation while I'm standing here on the tee box doing a dramatic motion, an athletic motion even, of coming through, turning away from my target and then going to throw, I want to see how the shot went. So naturally, my subconscious is going to drift the head forward to try to see what's happening with that shot. But when we do that, we are moving the doghouse forward, which means that that snap moment comes later, which increases the chance of grip locked. However, there, you can see, we didn't even really send the hand aggressively there, but we definitely didn't grip lock it because we didn't send the hand forward, so we didn't even get the strong snap, but we certainly didn't grip lock it because our head didn't drift forward either. Let's try baby Anheuser with the A-flat. Okay, so in that time, we early released every single one. And we'll get to that here right after we talk about another issue that may be occurring for this, and that is that you're using the wrong discs, so you're actually holding on more than you think you are. It's not some crazy secret that putters often feel deeper than drivers. Fairway drivers, distance drivers, these wider rims can often create what feels like a more shallow depth. So when I'm thinking about like power gripping and holding on to a fairway driver or a driver, it feels like when I'm in a putter and I'm trying to power grip a putter, I can be so much deeper in holding the disc. Now, if we're trying to hold onto the disc in order to have it rip out of our hands and not think about actively opening our hand during the shot, you would imagine that the deeper grip that I can have on the putter or on the disc in general means the harder it's going to be for that disc to rip out of my hands. So when we practice this idea at first, what we end up doing is we think about, well, I'm not going to be throwing as fast, I'm not going to be throwing as hard, because I want to think about the disc sort of ripping out of my hand. So default, where do we go when we're throwing slower speeds? Well, Mr. YouTube man, I do believe I dare say we'd be throwing some putters out there, wouldn't we? Yes, that's usually what people go to. But when they go to throw these putters, they're deeper, so the grip lock's going to be even more because they're focusing on increasing their grip into a deeper disc, which can inherently make it harder for the disc to rip out. Now, this is precisely why I said that if we're working on distance, it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to come to a shorter course. But I think when you get to a longer hole or something like that, you're going to focus on throwing faster, throwing harder, trying to see them distance gains. And yes, I mean literally seeing, which is going to create the head problem turning forward that we just talked about on the previous hole that makes it harder because the doghouse moves. So how do we practice this? Well, we're going to take the same 3 discs that we've been throwing the entire time. And because I have been working on this for a while, I just want to throw the Precious Child first because I want to see, hopefully we get this ace. But this right here is only 160 feet. It's slightly downhill. So I don't have to hit this with a ton of power, which is great because what I can do is I can focus on just sort of tightening my grip, holding everything back and letting the hand open up. And when I say open up, I immediately realize that could be confusing. I'm talking about sort of the arm, I guess, opening up and penduluming open, allowing the hand to go out and hold on to create that doghouse whip on the other side. So here we go. Relatively straight shot. We try again. That one we aimed a little wider because we knew that we wanted to swing it. And notice that I'm just adjusting. If I know that my whip is going to hit out here, then I'm just adjusting wider. For that disc to aim accordingly. Now, if I was practicing this for the first time and I wanted to feel that disc rip out, I would just grab a bunch of fairway drivers. It's going to feel way easier for these fairway drivers to rip out because I can't hold on to them as well. And boom, they carry forward. ESP Cicada. Oh no. I may have just chucked that ESP Cicada into the water. Never thought that was going to be an issue. But you can see there, I'm not even trying to throw these that hard. Just letting the disc rip out. Huge distance potential. That time I got nervous because I just sent my ESP Cicada possibly into its death. These are 160-foot shots on the money, just repeatable over and over again with minimal effort as I continue to open the arm and send the hand. Letting the disc rip out, shockingly, is going to make it so much easier to throw the disc with accuracy and throw it with power than you've been doing before. So at this point, you're just simply saying, all right, Mr. YouTube man, I got it. Just grip the disc hard and let it rip out. Do that little slow speed exercise over and over again until I feel it actually just ripping out repeatedly, and then speed things up from there. And I think that's certainly the Spark Notes version, but I want to give 1 or 2 more warnings to consider when looking at this, because when I was given the advice to simply just grip the disc hard and rip it, we did a video years ago at this point about this, and it ended up leading to one of the biggest form issues that I had for a long time, to where I didn't trust myself because I started over gripping the disc. So let's talk about 2 warnings that may come from this that could lead to huge amounts of frustration, because I want my pain to lead to your success and lack of pain. All right, so if you find yourself at Pinson, hole 7 by the water, there's a Foundation Custom Sub Box or eagle looking stamped America Cicada in the water, I think. Congratulations on your new Frisbee. Looks like the Mario Foundation stamp's going in the bag. So let's talk the 2 major issues that I think comes to this problem of when you start just holding onto the disc and gripping the disc. The first is that if you want to power grip the disc, sometimes we have to understand that gripping the disc with too much power, we sort of have to match the grip strength to the arm speed. Important distinction here. For instance, when I take my towel tail off, if I were to spin my towel tail around and around, and it works probably better if I have a longer towel, but as I'm spinning this towel around and around, I can have my hand really loose while I do this. Like, I'm not gripping the towel very tight as I whip the towel around. But as soon as I want to go a little faster, keeping my hand this loose doesn't allow me, it flies out of my hand. But subconsciously, I'm not going to think about it. My hand is just going to naturally tighten in order to make the towel spin faster. we have to find the balance of how tight should I be gripping the disc so that it still does release without slipping out early or grip locking. And sadly, I wish there was like a cheat code or a one tip that you could do to do this, but you just have to experiment. And that's where starting like we did on the previous hole, where you're throwing slow and you're seeing how much pressure can I put on the disc till I see it rip, that's important. I also think that it's important to, I know Overthrow put out a video about this, because this is something that when I was really in the throes of like struggling with over gripping the disc, because I had been told for a while, let's just grip the disc as hard as we possibly can and see what happens. It created, like I said, this fear within me of I couldn't hold on to it. In fact, it's hilarious that I'm having this conversation after just yeeting a cicada into the water, because playing with my friend Dakota and Josh, we were out there and Dakota and I did a bag swap, and I'm on this like water levee hole, and Josh was like, I just want you to grip the disc and just rip it and see what happens. And sure enough, I gripped and ripped, and I yeeted that thing way off into the water on the right side because I grip locked it, and I was like, that's my fear every time. So one of the tips that Josh says is, like, if you want to see if it's actually ripping out, when you go to throw, freeze and look at your hand. Is your hand open? Is the palm up? What's happening when you're throwing the disc? Or is it in this like finished position where it did actually rip out? Also, videoing helps dramatically here. Now, the other aspect of this is going to make this difficult is, let's say that you start figuring out the grip strength. Well, you feel like sometimes you're putting a lot of pressure with the middle two fingers on this so that you can hold on and have the disc rip out. Sounds great. Sounds awesome. You're seeing great results. You're getting the shots you're looking for sometimes. How do we make an adjustment? How do we, like, what's happening when it feels like I'm trying to hold on to the disc and so I'm gripping tight, but it's still releasing? What's happening? And this is where we talk about the elbow drop, or the elbow collapsing in, and internal versus external rotation. This is something that I'm personally struggling with a lot, and it's why I have throws that, as I'm working with Clint and doing my things, like I'm throwing 61, 62 miles an hour, and it's like, wow, this is amazing. We're getting like banger shots. Come on, because 60 miles an hour is 400 feet, which is our goal is like 450, right? So we're progressing. We're on our way to 65 miles an hour. But then I look, and my spin is like 940, 930, 950. I mean, there's times where I feel like I'm at like 58, 59 miles an hour, and I have like actually like 900 spin. And why? Because as my elbow is dropping, as I rotate around, the doghouse can't necessarily fire, and I can't get the disc out to a certain point. So what ends up happening is that I've turned to this point. Well, my hand is doing everything it possibly can to get the disc out, let the disc rip out. But instead of having it be on this controlled plane where it's bang and it's hitting hard right here, what's happening is my wrist and everything's rolling away from the shot. So I'm getting nose down results, but as I'm doing this, my hand is literally slipping away from the disc. So instead of having a moment where the disc comes and hits and rips out of all of these fingers to create maximum spin and hit, it's more so sort of just flopping out, and it's like I am halfway between just opening my hand up and letting the disc rip out, simply because the elbow is not staying up. Which is why we go back to this exercise once again of, when you slow down, just feeling this pendulum opening up and feeling that hit. If you do that with the disc sideways, like the Wind Waker drill, you can see that here, bang, elbow stays out, trying to keep the shoulder sort of sunk in, bang. I know Cam Hoff recently did a video on this with this like contraption device to work on the shoulder or the elbow dropping. And when the guy was in that video throwing, literally this was like his maximum power, was right here, just putting in hundreds of reps trying to get this to become natural. Once again, I wish there was an easy fix for this, but unfortunately, to really feel both mastering the grip pressure and getting that elbow up, you have to just put in the time and effort. Speaking of time and effort, it's about time. Precious Child went in the basket. Oh, I really liked it. Just maybe I thought it was going to turn, and it just didn't turn. Also, as a quick side note, I think part of the reason why the people think they get more spin on a forehand versus a backhand is because on a backhand, if I'm opening my hand, it feels natural. But if I were to open up my hand on a forehand, it would feel really bad. But I know that on a forehand, there's supposed to be this point of rotation inside. I didn't hate that attempt. All right. A5. You know what? For comic relief, because it's the last hole, let's hit him with a heck yeah range. It's pretty good. I don't know if they're still available at foundationdisc.com, but there's a lot of fun stuff at foundationdisc.com. Head out there. So if you're someone who is opening your hand, you never thought about letting the disc actively sort of rip out, take some of the warnings into your mind. Make sure you're not, you know, looking forward to the shot and moving the doghouse, because it's going to make those Griplocks, when it rips out, even harder. But I would challenge you, if you feel stuck in the like 300-foot range, a lot of the times this could be one of the biggest things that could push you immediately to a 350, a 400. I know, especially when I'm working with newer players, and I don't know why this is necessarily true, but it certainly does seem to be like a pretty constant, is when I'm working especially with newer female players, having them, if I just focus on like, hey, hold on to the disc and let it rip out, that seems to work like really well. So my challenge would be to go try this. Slow down by 30, 40% and just focus on letting it rip out. Feel that barrel rip out. And you see that shot hit over and over again. And I would be curious, let me know in the comments down below, if you try it and you come back to this video, how did it go? Did you see some distance increases? Did you see some stability changes inside of your disc because you were getting more spin on them, which was causing them to have sort of a different, either more stability, less stability, whatever it may be. So I want to say thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and you please make it fantastic for someone else too. Hope these tips get you some extra distance that you're looking for. But for now, we're going to leave you with the birdie.